Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and I have a fun rainbow Christmas double embossed layered background card to share with you today. I'm using two items from the brand new Make Merry release from Simon Says Stamp. I'm starting off with the Gift Boxes Clean Background and the CZ Design Good Cheer Clear Sentiment stamp set. I'm going to do this double layer embossing, so I'm starting with that Gift Boxes Clean background, and I learned this trick recently. I'm using Strathmore watercolor paper, and I kind of place it on my block and then reverse put my MISTI over. That way I make sure that that watercolor paper is going to be perfectly placed for that sentiment or the background stamp to go over the top of it. I'm going to start by stamping this a couple times with some clear embossing ink. I'm using Wow clear embossing ink. I like to stamp over it a couple times with my MISTI to make sure I get a good impression, and then peel off that little bit of adhesive in my MISTI. I'm not going to sprinkle embossing powder on this quite yet. I'm going to leave that clear background on there, but I'm going to switch over and put my foam mat back in, because then I'm going to move to my sentiment stamp. Carefully hold that in place. You notice I'm just using my magnets to sort of hold it on the edges instead of over the top of it, because I don't want to mess up the clear embossing. And then I'm going to stamp that sentiment over the top. I'm using black pigment ink. This is VersaFine ONYX Black. It's a nice dark crisp black ink, and it also is going to work great for heat embossing. So now I've done all my stamping. Then I'm going to pull this off, and I'm going to bring out my clear embossing powder and sprinkle this over the whole thing. Because I stamped these both together, I'm going to get one smooth image, my sentiment right over the background. The gift boxes in the background are going to be kind of invisible at this point right now. You can kind of see them on there, but as soon as I heat emboss and that clear embossing powder melts, you're going to see the joy turn all nice and shiny, and it's going to be nice and crisp and black with that clear embossing powder. Then everything else kind of vanishes into the background. But it's all going to reappear here in just a second as we start to add our watercolor over the top, because where that's heat embossed is going to resist the watercolor over the top. So I'm using a really simple, just rainbow order with my watercolors. I'm just moving through the colors and adding kind of a nice bright light wash of each thing as I go around. I'm going to come back over and add a little more depth, but I'm trying to kind of just keep moving with my ink so that my colors stay wet in between each color. That way they're going to blend together where each of the colors meet. By going in rainbow order, I'm also guaranteed that everything's going to blend well with what's next to it, which is kind of a little bit of a bonus as well, because each color on the color wheel is made to work well with the color next to it. So I'm going around from red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple, and then I'm going to end on pink where it blends back together with the red. It's kind of a perfect transition color between those two. All right, and as soon as I added that back on, now I'm coming back just with each of those colors and kind of roughly adding some texture over the top with the same color. This is going to kind of deepen the color. It's going to add, as you can see, it just kind of adds a little more depth and a little more texture to the color. I don't know how else to describe it. I'm just kind of adding a little more concentrated color, but I'm being careful not to hit everything and just let the colors kind of blend out on their own on that and add that fun watercolor texture. I really love the effect this has over that clear embossing. I'm going to grab, this is just the damp cloth I was using to clean my brush, and I'm just cleaning a little of the excess color around my sentiment where it kind of pooled a little bit darker, just so that I can keep that sentiment nice and clear and visible. I didn't want it to kind of get obscured in there with too much color right around it. All right, moving on now, I'm going to do a little secondary sentiment. I'm going to heat emboss that on a strip of black cardstock. There's just something about a crisp white sentiment on black cardstock that I love, and with all of the color and drama and boldness of this card, it's a perfect way to make that extra little sentiment pop. I'm stamping it with that same clear embossing ink, and then I'm going to sprinkle it with white embossing powder. Generally, I keep black cardstock on my desk to stamp sentiments on like this, and I like to use a larger piece and then trim it down once I've stamped and heat embossed. It's just easier for me to stamp on a larger piece of cardstock. There's more for you to hold on to as you're doing it, and then it's quite easy just to trim it down to get the perfect fit and the perfect size to your sentiment strip. All right, we've got that all ready to go now. Before I'm going to go ahead and trim this down, I'm going to get my foam adhesive on the back so it's ready to go, because of course we need a little bit of dimension on this card, and According to Laura Basson, we all know dimension is life. So I'm going to make sure and be sure that I have a good foam backing on there. And then I started to peel this off and went, oh, nope, there's something else I want to do. This is mostly dried by now, but I did set it aside and let it dry a little more. And then I went ahead and used a stitched rectangle just to die cut out the edges a little. This will give me a little bit of a border when I attach it to my white card base. And it also gives kind of a stitched detail around the edge and trims off a little bit of the maybe not as fully watercolored and nice little pieces. All right, I mounted my sentiment with foam over the top and then used a large foam backing there to attach that onto my card base. And there you go, fun rainbow Christmas goodness. Thanks so much for coming by today. Have a wonderful day.